for week 4, here's what I'll go over what writing K is. Here's writing K. It's fairly simple. After you have your rough draft done, what I want people to do is you have your rough draft. And remember, I made this outline last week about how you're trying to do these various things. So underneath this outline, there's this chart. All I'm asking people to do is look at their essay, their rough draft, and over here, just check off whether they have it or they don't have it, right? So for example, in your introduction, do you have a statement of your broad subject, like a broad statement about your narrative? You go yes or no. Do you talk about narrative paradigm theory? Yes or no? So you're basically just going through, it's like a checklist, okay? And so the hope is, so you have your main idea. Do you present the main idea? Do you introduce a source? Do you compare sources or whatever? So you're trying to just figure out what you have and what you don't have in your rough draft. And then obviously for when you revise your rough draft, you will sort of know what things you might be missing. So that's all writing K is. You have your rough draft, you're like, okay, you're looking at your rough draft and trying to figure out, do I do this, or I don't have this, or whatever. And so then for your revision, you would fix those things that you're missing. Now this is the discussion board outline for the week, I mean. So the discussion board for week 4. So basically, what you're trying to do, oh yeah. So like, are you talking about writing K, right? Yeah, so if you go through writing K and you find that you're missing something, yeah, you can definitely, you want to add it in, either for the final draft or you can do it for the rough draft. I was telling people in my last class, I mean, I'm going to talk about it, I'll probably send an announcement out, but what I want people to do is, like, so by Wednesday, whatever draft you have submitted for Wednesday is the one that I'm going to read and make comments on. Okay, so you can go ahead and update your draft and fix it, add sentences, and then resubmit it. And I was mentioning to people that, because a lot of people are trying to fix it and stuff, so you can definitely do that, fix it, and then submit it so that by Wednesday I'm looking at sort of like your most updated draft, and then my comments will mean more because I'll be looking at your most recent. Okay. Okay. So week 4, online discussion. It goes like this. So you go to week 4 and you take one of your paragraphs from your rough draft, right, and you copy and paste it into this little box here. So you have that. The next thing you copy, and then the next thing you want to do is create a list of sentences, which we did this one other time, I believe. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm just going to copy and paste it again, but then I'm going to do the numbers. So I did number 1, and then I'm going to try to find where the next sentence begins and just hit return. And that'll just I'm creating a whole list of sentences, right? So I'm breaking my paragraph into this list. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm basically going through and I'm highlighting every time that I mention one of the authors. Okay, so I'm going through and being like, okay, anytime that I mention an author, so I say he argues this and he partly agrees, and then this is it's a study that one of the authors used, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight that just because it refers to other people. Okay, so the idea is you've done this. If you've done this well, if your paragraph is good, you're going to mention the authors often, right? So what do I have here? I have 7 sentences. I'm mentioning the authors 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and then another study. That's what you want to have. Okay, so what I'm asking people to do is take a paragraph, break it down, and then see how many times you refer to an author. If you don't refer to an author very often, you need to. But this is just trying to make sure people are focusing more on, or staying focused on what the authors say and explaining ideas using the authors rather than starting to just talk about the subject itself. Right? You don't really want to get into it. So for example, my first example, right, so this was my first example. And what I did was I didn't have mentioned the authors at all. So what I did was I said, okay, I need to do that. So I went through each sentence and said, okay, how can I talk about an author in here? Like, is there somebody who says this or who doesn't say this, who agrees or disagrees? And then I started to add authors in. So that's what that was. And what I ended up with was the one that I showed you. So that's essentially it. So what I'm hoping is once you do it, you will see how many you have. If you mention the authors enough or not, and then you will know that you want to add that, right? As you're revising your essay, as you're fixing your essay. I already did that here. Good for me. Okay. You put a paragraph down, you break it into sentences, a list of sentences. You highlight whenever you use an author's name, and then if you don't do it enough, you know that you need to add more to your actual essay. That's basically it.